All right, and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. I haven't been able to jump on here for a while. We went to a convention and it's been busy, so I don't know. If you're gone for, I don't know, it's basically like 4 days. Eh, puts you a little bit behind. But, okay, so I went out to the Mesa, Arizona convention. Thanks to everyone for that came by the booth. It was great seeing everyone, chatting with everyone. I wanted to get around to doing, I don't know, a couple quick scenes featuring kind of more of the red rock types of formations. And I was thinking fall foliage, but I don't know, I just forgot to pack my fall foliage types of deciduous trees, so I just didn't have anything to do that with, so I didn't. I guess I could have pulled it out of inventory and whatnot, but I don't know. We only took so much inventory. So what I'm going to do here is a full page scene, and I'm going to do that with a waterfall type of scenario, hopefully looking like a bit of a canyon, and we'll have some fall foliage inside that canyon. So kind of representing a little bit more of the higher elevations of, what would be a desert terrain, we're not going to do anything to replicate anything, but I was thinking Sedona kind of inspired in terms of the scenery here. And, we don't have the exact types of flora, that would be in that type of scenario, or the geology really, but you can do things that are somewhat representative of or inspired by. Okay, so when you're doing these types of things, I wouldn't think so much of a replication as much as kind of inspiration. Hello, Hila R. And Linda, good to see you. All right, so Linda, I was just thinking about you. I was pulling out a full page piece of paper here. When I think of you, Linda, though, maybe that's too small. When I think of you these days, it should really be like 11 by 17, One of these days, Linda, when I think of you, maybe it's going to be more in the spirit of like a 30 by 40. How's that? Inches. I don't know. What is that in centimeters? I don't know. It's big, though. All right, so I have a lot of designs here. I don't have anything planned out. We're just going to kind of go off of the kind of compositional building fundamentals here, and we'll just start with our kind of main image that we're going to go with. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these here, but it's going to be based around a waterfall type of thing, and then we're going to just build from there. Okay, now I have some deciduous trees that I want to have lighter in the foreground, and so keeping that in mind, I don't want to do everything in here first in terms of the rock structuring, because I might have some of this rock structuring behind some trees. So I don't want darker trees to be showing right through, lighter ones right in front of it. So we're going to have to oscillate this a little bit and go with some foliage, and then kind of go back and forth a little bit. I don't know. This scene's probably going to be somewhat, a little bit impressionistic, maybe, the way that we'll build some of these things out. All right, so hopefully my pads aren't super, super ultra juicy still. And they are not. Okay, I really inked up my pads super heavily going out to demo out there in Mesa, because the last time I was out there, everything was drying really fast. Okay, scenes were drying, inks were drying really fast. Not so much this time around, but I did ink things up, pretty heavily. And also when you're demonstrating, of course, you don't want to be re-inking all the time. All right, so that being said, I don't know, maybe my pads are a little bit dry right now. Let's take a look here. Okay, this is going to be my foundational image. I don't want that thing to come out like super light and have to compensate for that. Let me just re-ink this a little bit here. that's happened sometimes, where my first impressions are really light, and then it's kind of compensating for that throughout. I don't want to do that this time around. Not on this big piece of paper here. So, all right, so let's see. Let's go about, I don't want to go too center like that with the foundational thing. You kind of want to go a little bit rule of thirds type of thing. Let's go a little bit lower here, I think. And let's go a little bit off to the side, like about like so. Stamping fundamentals, like that video from a couple uploads ago with the padding underneath your paper for large stamps. Hello, Phyllis. Good night, Phyllis. Sweet dreams. If you leave the video on next to you're sleeping there, you'll learn via your subconscious. I'm just joking. All right, so let's add in some surrounding imagery. All right, so this is a big stamp right here, but the way that I'll be using it, it's like a filler stamp. So you go foundation right here, and you go filler off to the side. And there's any number of images you can use for that. Types of images, whatever you want to do. I over ink this, but so be it. I'm talking about, I didn't need to ink that side of it here, but ink is cheap. And we'll go out to the side here. I'm thinking about kind of a turquoise-ish looking waterfall here, or water color scheme to go against that kind of red rockish type of thing. I don't know, it's like almost like, now I think about it, it's kind of like jade or something like that, those colors out there. There's this one area called Havasu Falls. I had an opportunity to go hike to it. But I didn't do that. I wasn't really into hiking in big groups, and that's the way they were going to do that one. But I had some friends go on this one trip that was offered to this entity called the outdoorsclub.org that I used to do a lot of events with after I got a little bit tired of going out camping and hiking by myself for a few years. But I still didn't really like the notion of going on a hike with 30, 40 people. So I didn't do that one, but that area, I don't know, that's one of those that I considered maybe maybe I should have went. Okay, so I'm taking a look at this right now, and I think I want to get a little bit more of a rock up here. But I might want to put like a tree right here, okay, instead. And probably over here flanking it, so it's like a little bit of a stream up top, and then we can create another bit of a tier, maybe, up here, and go with some more distant rocks up here, okay? So there's going to be a little bit of a plateau, how waterfalls go down this tiered type of terrain. And we'll put in some sort of foreground down here. So that's the concept of it right now. And like I said, it's not planned. You just kind of you can go into different types of situations and definitely kind of build and follow suit with a kind of an existing, I don't know, whatever model or something like that. You really learn a lot by doing that. But, if you're just kind of designing or composing, it's you just kind of start off with your, a lot of times it's the largest of imagery, okay? I mean, you're not going to start off with like a filler, like grass texture or something like that with a scenario like this. So you start off with your foundation. If it's a cabin, a waterfall, you know, like a significant waterfall. I mean, you can have a cabin or something like that and have a waterfall as a filler stamp too. But you just kind of start off like that and you just kind of build around it, you know, with whatever type of scenario you want. And, you know, it's no harder than that. It's not always, you know, I mean, a large stamp could be a filler stamp, or you can use kind of smaller portions of a larger stamp and just use it as texture or something like that, and then it becomes a smaller stamp. So that's what I'm doing here. And I don't know, this one's, I would say that some of the scenes that I do like this, I mean, I might have a little bit more planned out just because it's like a quarter page and there's not going to be a lot of space to, you know, for variation. But on this one, where when you get to, you know, a full size scene, you know, a full page, it's big for sure. And, you know, the larger it is, in theory, the more variation you're going to have. So, you know, don't let it intimidate you too much. You know, I know it is if you've only been working in kind of quarter page types of formats. I mean, you know, it gives me a little bit of pause too, but not too much because I'm not really thinking about the whole something overall. Okay, I'm really thinking about like this next space right here, just this one little area right here. Okay, and you don't have to think too far in advance. You certainly could, but you don't have to. Okay. A lot of people get paralyzed at the kind of notion of I don't know, kind of completion. But going into most of my cards, if I'm doing something from scratch, it's just, I'm not even thinking like that. It's just kind of invention along the way. Okay, so I'm just adding in, so I went with an orange on here, and then I'm going in and adding some of this. This is a brilliant yellow. It's 43 Marvy. The previous pan that I was using is a terracotta. I don't know, just deeper orange. All right. I probably want more yellows, so let me add a little bit more of this in here. And that kind of blends in some of that orange right there. I think I might want a little bit of green in here too. So let me see if I can add some of that in. If we can, great. If we can't, no big deal. And what I mean by if we can, it just means, you know, there might be already too much liquid on here. And the green is just not going to apply, but it looks like it is. I think, I'm not sure what I re-inked this green with. I think I re-inked it with another green that's not this color, because I think I couldn't find my olive re-inker, so I think I might have re-inked it with like a pine green or something like that. I'm not sure. Okay, so that is that. I'm just eyeballing that, and I think it's reasonably mixed in there. I have no idea what this is going to stamp out now. With all that kind of blending that occurs with that type of, I don't know, whatever, color blending, direct on stamp, I should say. Okay, so really have a lot of that rock showing, because not only that, I have 2 pieces of paper towel, so you are stamping off a little bit of a ledge, you know, in terms of the thickness of the paper towel. You don't want a big, huge space in between your foliage and your rock, okay? I'm stamping it kind of where, I don't know, the tree is behind the rock, but I don't know, someone will be in front of it, hopefully. And again, it's just because I don't want to have a big space in between, but I am going to use the paint pens on this quite a bit. And those are going to fill in. So, oh, that is the best color scheme I've ever achieved lately. That's exactly kind of the type of coloring that I don't know, that I've been going for, but I just never get. Because I use the paint pens anyways, but if I can get a good foundation like that, I'll never be able to get it again, you know. I don't think going forward here with the additional impressions that I'm going to be applying on here, but I don't know. Just in general, that's kind of, you know, that's what been going for all this time. It might be because I just re-ink these pens too, so sometimes I'm applying this down here, then I go with the pen, and the pen is like super dry, so it's like removing too much ink, and it's absorbing into the pen as opposed to the pen color transferring onto the tree here. So let's see where I can go. And now, I mean, a lot of this ink is going to still be on here, so let's see if I can get, I don't know, some semblance of a consistency here. Too bad about Marvy 1500 series pens. If, you know, Uchida is just not going to be offering them anymore. It is unbelievable to me to think of that. They've been such a fixture in the, or were a fixture. If they were a fixture in the stamping industry, they wouldn't be getting discontinued, right? They were such a foundation for, I don't know, kind of the beginning of, I don't know, the modern day kind of usage of rubber stamps as far as a hobby goes. All right, so let's see. Let's go with this over here. I wish I could go for a second impression, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I can get a really light impression, but I want these to be really, really vibrant, so I don't think I'm going to go for that. Okay. There were some really long time stampers at, oh my God, I love that color right there. This one's kind of spreading out a little bit. I think it was just so moist. I don't know, it's changing a little bit. See how it's filling in? Because it's like, you know, these pads are, you know, are completely inked up as well as these pens go. So there's probably like a big buildup of moisture like that, and it's kind of absorbing into the paper like that. So it's spreading around a little bit. So that's what I was kind of going for, and that's what I had here, and you know, now it's gone. I'm just joking. There's going to be there's going to be some changes on that one as well. What a bummer. I don't know. I was thinking about doing this in the on glossy, but I was thinking I might want to use some colored pencils on here, so I'm doing it on the semi-gloss to you know, to have that option here with the semi-gloss. The glossy just isn't going to accept any of the colored pencils because it's just too slick. You can go with a little bit of coating on it, but not much. Okay, so that is a little bit of the yellow right there. Let's see, a little bit of a perimeter green. I'm thinking I'm not going to go for too much of an impression right here with this one. I want to go a little bit lower right in here. All right, let's go with that and that. Okay. And let's go for some of this in the foreground as well. Huh. All right. I don't want too big of a creek here, okay? I want it to be kind of smaller. I don't want like this big pond in here, so we're going to create a little bit of a kind of a foreground ledge, I guess. It's one of those things in the deserts oftentimes. There's that pathway that's kind of created through the rocks and whatnot. So this thing might be going off this way, and there's a ledge here, and it just kind of trickles around on the sides or something of that sort. All right, let's see. I haven't used this ledge with brush in a while. I'm going to do that in conjunction with the ledge. Let's go with this over here. And then we'll do this over here, and maybe something off to the side here. Let's see. Okay, I think I have it here. Let's see, let's go like this. I might want to do it on a little bit of a slope, just for a little bit of variation. Okay, so... this is the ledge. Okay. I might use that in the background as well, I'm not sure. When I see that ledge, I was just thinking about I can do it vertical too, and I was just thinking I need to do some more, or not some, but I feel it makes me want to do another cave scene, because I use that one in my cave scenarios a lot. And I go vertical with them, which I don't do too often. I mean, sometimes I do it vertical, horizontal, it's like a whole perimeter type of thing, but I don't know. It's usually not doing that too much. Okay, so that's the ledge with brush down there, and let's go with it again here. All right, something like that, a little bit of foreground. Okay. All right. What are you working on now, Linda? Are you working on any type of scene in particular? Or larger formats or anything, or small, any type of new sequencing type of scenario? Okay, let's go with this over here. All right, do I put this right over the top of that ledge, or do I put it in the back of the ledge? I'm gonna put this one right in front of it here. All right, now we're clearly going to see this showing right through, but that's where I'm just going to have to do a lot of the paint pen work. But to me, I don't know, it's better than having to mask everything off, and I'm not into doing all that type of masking. So I would just rather just stamp right over things and then fill it in later on with some reasonably opaque paint pens. They could be a little bit more opaque and it'd be great, but so be it. They're better than a lot of the media that we've had in the past, so I'm not complaining. Okay, so let's go like that. And let's go with this right here. Let me tilt this over a little bit, so it kind of, I'm not going to do it too much, but if you kind of bend things in a little bit like that, you know, from the left and right, it kind of, I don't know, subconsciously draws the viewer in towards the center of the piece, okay? And kind of works as a little bit of a, oh, like a, I don't know if it's a subconscious type of draw like that, especially when you're working angles and it doesn't have, it can be like, even like that, okay? Now notice how everything's kind of vertical right here. Somewhat. I mean, the trees have a gesture to them, but I'm going to be bending in from the left and right. And those types of things right there will create that little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a visual movement. Okay. All right. So let's see. I like this terracotta. I haven't really worked this terracotta. I'm not sure if this is one of those I pulled off my shelf. I had a bunch of different colors and pads that I haven't used in quite some time. Or, I don't know, they might have been a duplicate or something like that, but my other one kind of dried out or something like that, or crumbled, you know, the padding. And I don't know, I just never kind of referenced the ones on the shelf against the ones that I still had out, so I don't know, I have some new old colors that I'm using again, as far as the Marvies go. All right. What size, Linda? Is that are you doing a 11 by 17? And hello, Linda D. Soggy South Australia. Is it too much sogginess, or is it, or is that good? Actually, with Australia, though, gosh, you know, there's been some flooding going on there in a bad way. It maybe over the last, what is it? I don't know, in different areas, like 7 years maybe, or something like that, or maybe longer. I knew some stampers down there that, you know, really had their house flooded out, and you know, with those kind of those major types of flooding, it takes a long time to, I don't know, with the insurances and the rebuilding and everything like that. Needless to say, on this scene, there is a lot of preliminary color just being stamped into the scene, so I'm not going to have to do really as much coloring on this one as, I don't know, one would kind of anticipate on a piece of something this size right here. I mean, I wasn't thinking that. I'm just, you know, stamping trees where I want it to go, but I don't know. That kind of the alleviation of a lot of necessity for coloring is not a bad thing. All right, so going back in, I'm gonna have to remember this combination here. Of course, the pens and the pads will be kind of at different states of whatever dryness or whatever, so it wouldn't be the same. Okay, let's see. Let's go down right here. That's a lot of rain clouds there, Linda. Thunderstorms for hours and hours. That's amazing. Huh. Send some of that up our way. We can really use it. Although we got about an inch of rain. I don't know, not quite that, but earlier in the week. We're not getting kind of days of rain here when we get our storms coming through. It's like one, I don't know, 24-hour period, and then it's like dry for, I don't know, 2 weeks or something like that. Which is probably kind of the way that, I don't know, it's going to be going in the foreseeable future. I think it's supposed to be a La Nina year here. And in the past, I know they always talked about this El Nino year or something like that. And that was pretty rainy, but the following year was even rainier back when, I don't know what we got, double the rainfall or something like that. And pretty rainy. We would only be so lucky, too lucky to get that again, though, I think, these days. People would be praying for that. Okay, so we have two layers here. We have kind of foreground and midground right here. That would be the background if I stopped at that, but we're going to go with some imagery in the background here. And I have to figure out what I want to do in terms of this little kind of negative space in here. Do I want to build it up with some additional rocks? Maybe. Like maybe I'll put this in here, or maybe even the top portion of it like that. It could be interesting like that. It's always kind of tricky when you're bringing this into this mix right here and stamping it over lighter imagery, though, especially with something so solid. So I need to be really careful about that. But like I said, the paint pens should remedy some of that type of issue right there. Okay, yeah, Linda, you're doing 11 by 17, huh? That you know what I think about that, you know, with you and those sizes. It's just, I don't know, it's just like it opens up I don't know, breathing space for your expression. It was, I don't know, it's one of those scenes you did. I don't know, it's probably been a couple years by now, or I don't know, maybe it's been 3 years for all I know, but I remember you did this one. I don't know if I mentioned to you, but it reminded me of this type of painting. I think they called it genre painting or something like this by this guy named Bruegel. It's where you had a lot of characters running around, and that's when I first kind of, I don't know, the thought occurred to me that it's just seemed like, I don't know, something opened up as far as creativity, you know, with your creativity or something like that. It just, I don't know, it seemed like you could breathe in that, you know, larger space from a visual standpoint. Okay, so let's see here. I'm trying to figure out what I'm wiping off. Okay, so I wiped off all like around in here, right here, and this really hard rock right here. Okay. Let's see how that goes. I'm going to mask off right there too. Some of this is going to go into the trees, okay, and I know that, so let's see. Let's wipe off some of this one. All right, let's see. So my paint pens are going to have to remedy this sort of dark behind light type of situation, which, you know, they're good at doing anyway, so actually that turned out pretty good. It doesn't look so bad behind there, because again, I just kind of wiped off the perimeter. It's that fundamental thing of, you know, like especially with sky imagery, how you just kind of wipe off the perimeter like that. Now I had to go in a little bit deeper for something like that, but I don't know. I expected to see some harsher lines running through all that. So less work for me, you know, going forward. Less work for me, the better. That's, you know, my stamping philosophy. All right, let's see. Okay, so I mentioned I might be using this ledge stamp again. And, all right, I need to, let's see. Where's my thicker block right here? Let's go like this. Okay, I just need a little bit of the top portion of it for right in here. And for this area right here, I'll need the top portion right there. Okay? Really light impression to begin because we have those trees right there. So let's see. Oh, when the rain's horizontal, yeah. That is some crazy rain when it's like that. We had a little bit of that in one of our storms earlier, but again, it wasn't, it wasn't too crazy. I think we were supposed to get like 1.5 inches one day or something like that, but I don't know. I don't know. It never materialized, or at least where we are right here. I think it did rain quite a bit in some other areas. All right, let's see. Top like that. All right. Huh. I don't do this too often with the dark behind light like that. You know, the deciduous trees. That's working out pretty good. I didn't think it would work out that well. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now this, maybe I should mask off some of those trees there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's go like that. All right, now this one I've taken off quite a bit of ink, okay? Just because, I'm putting it right through a lot of the trees. All right, now I don't even know if I need to do this right back here, but I don't know. Kind of the building portion of me, I don't know, seems to need to cap that off a little bit so that I can add, the surrounding mountains in here, or canyon area, I guess. So, thank God that came out. I'm just kidding. Like I said, the paint pens would have taken care of all that anyway. All right, I think I'm done with the larger aspen tree, and I think I'm going with the smaller ones up here. If you don't have two sizes, then you just use the top portions of these ones, and it just looks representatively smaller. All right, so we're going to add these right up top there, like it's on another plateau or something like that. So we're thinking about these cascading types of situations there. 25 degrees there where you are, huh, Karen? Hello, Angered Pegasus. Good to see ya. All right, so let's see here. Let's go a little bit, I don't know, we'll see if we can go a little bit lighter with this one. Maybe I won't bring in the greens into this one, so it won't have that kind of darker tinge in there. Let's just see how it goes. Okay, so I'm just going with the orange. Going to the convention this last weekend, and putting my demo kit together, it didn't occur to me, but I realized just how many of my old, like 30-year-old Marvy pads were, the pad material was kind of disintegrating. I have at least 10 of those where, I don't use them for impressions anymore, but because they're, I don't know whether concave, basically. So, but I was just kind of surprised to see that the quantity of those in my pads that I'm using in these demonstrations here. I use things until they're unusable, basically. All right, so see, kind of smaller trees, A little bit larger. I don't know, these ones are kind of as large as these foreground ones. This one's a little bit taller. Where did I guess I don't know. I don't want these waterfalls to look like they're, you know, like out of Yosemite or something like that either, you know, just like immense and towering. So putting the larger trees next to this, it changes the scale a little bit, as far as what it represents, you know. I don't want something, like I said, gigantic. Glad you're able to catch the live, Angered Pegasus. Thanks so much for joining in. Okay, let's see. It's 3:20 a.m. for you, Karen. Wow. Yeah. 25 degrees. And yes, I took a nap. You are all set for this, Karen, for this marathon scene right here. I'll only keep you up for the next like 5 hours. Just joking. I don't, how long has this been right here? Actually, we are on the 41-minute mark. That's not too bad, right? This is like 4 scenes right here, and I'm almost to the top of the scene. And like I said, you know, earlier, it's we've added a lot of color just inherently with all these trees here. So there's going to be, I don't know, a little bit less color. And as I say that, though, I always add in all those other little things like white pigment ink and all that, you know, types of touches that I guess does take a little bit of time to do, because those are, you know, really the most fun kind of parts for me in I don't know, the creation of a scene. I really like doing those little touches like that. Okay, so I think I am going to start going with some secondary impressions using the same ink right here to just get some lighter impressions going in here to look like it. I mean, these trees are going to be the most distant ones within the scene. Higher up on the composition generally means farther back in the distance. So I don't think I'm not going to go for a third impression though. Okay, so the second impression wasn't too bad, but definitely less intense and lighter. And hello, Panic Coffee. Good to see ya. 10 a.m. there. Hope you're having a good weekend. Start to your weekend there. All right, let's see. Let's just go with straight yellow here. And then we'll have a little bit of residual orange on here. Okay. All right. 10 minutes before 8 p.m. It's always interesting, the different time zones. Sometimes when I get off one of these live streams, I say there was someone, you know, in Belgium, and there was some in South Africa, you know, and then there was some people even in the Central Standard and Eastern Standard. The ones that kind of baffle me are the ones right here in the U.S. that are on Eastern Standard Time when I'm on at like 1 a.m. You know, I can imagine, you know, being up at like whatever 4 a.m. You know, 4:30 a.m. And unless someone's like, you know, works the you know, some odd shift or something like that, you know, and their days are reversed. But that's always fascinating to me. All right, so we have a lot of trees going on in here, a lot of color, and let's give a little bit of scale in here and go with some like a canyon type of terrain. So I'm kind of moving things. See how this goes like this? This waterfall is going like this. This one's not real visible, but it's going like that. So I think I'm going to have some sort of like canyon type of thing. Kind of rule of thirds, you know, 1/3, 2/3. So I'll have the canyon kind of opening over here. But see, that's better than having the canyon right center. You know, unless you're specifically going for something super kind of vertical structure. I think it's good to have things kind of move around a little bit from a visual standpoint like that. Uh, well, Panic Coffee, I tell you, um, they're good ones. But I mentioned this all the time, and I was mentioning this to I was talking to some really long time stampers at the stamp convention that I was at. Some of the people that have known, I don't know, my stamps since the I don't know if they knew it in the 80s. They might have in the with Stamp in the Hand Company, but I was mentioning, they're like pens like these days, these acrylic paint pens. So I don't know, we're getting new kinds of media all the time that just weren't available before. And I love using that type of stuff. And I don't know, there's a lot of things that over the years became, oh, I don't know, some of my favorite media to use, but I would say by and large, I have a lot more to use now than even, I don't know, like 5 years ago, maybe. I'm thinking specifically of the different marker types out there. And before the pens that I'm using right now, the just the like the gel pens itself. Gel pens are amazing, sets of 180 colors with 180 refills for like, US $25 or something like that. Um, Alcohol markers. There's the Copics out there, which are probably the best, and you can re-ink them and everything like that. But, someone's just starting off and you know, they don't know everything to get and, they have a budget. Um, Getting a pack of 88 alcohol marker colors, double-sided, not the brush marker types, but I know they're cheaper, but they work really good for like $40. And there's a lot of different packs of those out there these days, but I really love that aspect of it. So that being said, I love the Marvy pads. I just okay, but one of the things that I saw recently though, that I really like though, I haven't used any of her pads, but those Catherine Pooler pads have that same type of sponge pad that I haven't seen in years since Vivids. It had that kind of real great looking. I don't know if it's the same, but it sure looks the same. That type of material for the pad material. Everything, a lot of things are fabric, okay? Fabric styles of pads. And I use those, okay? Because that's how they come. But I really do like, the Vivid pads are really fantastic. Marvy pads are really great too, but these Vivid pads, I don't know, that sponge on there, it looks like that's what it looked like that to me. In terms of those Catherine Poolers. So it just depends if the inks are dense. If they're as dense as the old Vivids or as bright as the Marvies, then you have a really good winning combination there. But a lot of the inks just haven't been quite as bright and saturated as the Marvies. And the Marvies too. The viscosity of them, it's a thinner ink so it can stain because dye-based inks work by staining, right? So the thinner the viscosity, the easier it is to stain. So there's a lot of inks out there. Again, they're all pretty good, but they can't stain as well because they're just so thick. I mean, I use them though, but I wish they would just make them thinner somehow and just move to a denser foam material. The reason why they go thick is so that they don't, they don't come leaking out of the pad down here, you know, if, you know, in shipping or something like that. They don't want a bunch of the ink pouring out, but if they just switch over to a nice dense foam pad as opposed to using the, you know, thicker material, then they can go with a thinner ink that's going to be able to function much better through the use of staining, okay, which is the way that those have to work. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not talking to Sukuneko here, so I guess it's no use saying that. There's bad manufacturers out there. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that hard of a concept, you know. But it seems like, I don't know, they just decided to go with kind of one format and kind of just stuck with it over the last, you know, like 30 years. I don't know, how long have pads been out there? Maybe 25 years? Okay, so anyways, adding a little bit of a smaller kind of thing, there's the area in there where the canyons are separated, and that's where this water is kind of coming from. So this is a brown right here. I forgot to be mentioning what those were. So that was a brown, this is an olive green, this is a brilliant yellow, and then I was using the terracotta pad right here. One of my customers said, hey, you know, Kevin, I'm, you know, pausing the video and I'm trying to read, you know, what number pens these are. And I don't like to say that because, you know, I like people just to be able to utilize whatever, you know, whatever brands they have, not be too brand specific. But she said, hey, you know, I got to know that color. So that goes out to her if she's, you know, doing something like this. So, okay. Suspiciously sunny here in Belgium. November weather. Should be gloomy, misty, and gray. Huh. Well, I guess go out and later on today, after I finish with this scene, of course, go out and enjoy the weather there, or that sunshine. Get some vitamin D going in there. Okay. 10 minutes before 8 p.m. there, for those who don't do 24-hour time. Anytime you mention that 24-hour time, I have to kind of think about it in my head. You know, my little brain does the calculations there. Okay, but let's see here now. Okay, so we have our foundation right here. Boy, that is pretty crazy with all those tones. I haven't done this scene before. I should have cut off a little bit of space around it. Yeah, I was gonna say, after I started off with this, I didn't want to go and trim the paper down. Like say, hey, hello, welcome to this live stream. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I don't know, it wouldn't have taken that long, but I don't know. I can't really mat this anymore except on a white piece of paper. All right, but that being said, okay, so I have this laid out right here, and okay, so these rocks in here, we're going to make it kind of in that red rockish looking color scheme that's, you know, very present in the Southwest out here. Not really in California, but you know, when you get into Arizona or Utah or something like that. And I'm thinking about the water color scheme down here going with more of an aqua kind of blue, greenish type of color scheme. And I think that would be really nice. I don't think I'm gonna do too much in the sky. I think I'm gonna have some kind of white, kind of mist kind of creeping around on those, but we'll try to do something up here with the rocks up there. And we'll have a little bit of a deeper reddish color scheme on these rocks down below, but we want to keep and retain a lot of the lighting on them. So that being said, let's get on here with it. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I'm scrolling down here on the notes. Um, what's a budget? I like that. Let's see. Hello, Astrid. Good to see you. We don't have Marvings in the Netherlands. Astrid, did you ever, were Marvies ever out there? I gotta think Marvies were out there at some point. I don't know when you started stamping, Astrid. I'd have to think that in the 90s, though, Marvies probably made their way out there somewhere. Might not have been in the Netherlands, but I don't know, but maybe, I don't know, pre stamp pads. Like Hein Design was out there doing that, puts on that convention out in Germany. I got to think they were doing something with Marvy. A lot of the coloring though that was being done, just wasn't with inks. It was with colored pencils back in those days, in certain areas overseas, like in Europe and whatnot. Um, let's see. Belgium, yeah. I mean, Marvy products, okay, Marvy products were easy to find out here in the 80s and 90s, okay? Early 90s. But then stamp pads started coming out. And then you started seeing it became all about the pads. It became all about rainbow pads. And then there were pad manufacturers that started popping up that didn't used to exist out here. But then, like Ranger Industries was, with the distress inks and all that, Adirondacks. They were more about, they were doing like industrial inks. I think that was their history. And then they moved into the crafting space. And then it really became all about those pads. And Marvies, okay, like their inks and their pens, that's like one small part of their business. So they weren't very aggressive, and it took them a long time to come out with pads. So they were kind of late to the game, relatively speaking. So everyone was already doing Adirondack pads, Printworks, even small companies had their own line of pads. I think they were all being made by Stuart Superior or someone like that. But they finally came out with their pads, and it was all, stores already have 3, 4 different lines of pads. They're not going to carry another like a fifth line of pads or something like that. So they just weren't in the game. But I had been using Marvy products for a long time, and I was familiar with their inks. So I was going around teaching classes, and I would use Marvy pads. And a lot of times, I don't know, I would say like, I don't know if none of those stores carried Marvy at the time, but they did. They definitely did after I left. So I was opening accounts for them all over the nation that just hadn't used them. But they had already forgotten about Marvy inks by, I would say, the late 90s, where everyone was using Marvy inks early 90s, okay, in pen form. So, yeah. Anger Pegasus, it almost feels like California there, huh? Well, it's cooler in California, so maybe we're about the same temperature right now. Yeah. We found Memento by Tsukuneko, but they are not waterproof. No. Well, the Mementos they're water-based, as far as that goes. But yeah. These are all dye-based inks, so they're not going to be waterproof. But the way that I'm using them, I don't want them to be waterproof. But okay, but that's a really key thing, because see, ink pads that are thicker, like if the ink is thicker, it's not getting as absorbed and staining into the surface of the paper as much. So that when we go on and color on these, especially our black impressions, it starts smearing more. But with my Marvy ink, it's thinner, so it's penetrating the paper a little bit more, and it's staining deeper into it. Now, as I go on with my inks right here, I might be getting some smearing occurring, because I just re-inked my black ink too, okay? But just in general, I don't know. Things smeared, I was raised, stamp raised in a smearing type of scenario, so that never bothered me. What I do is I just kind of redefine the crispness later on. I don't want complete smearing where, I'm just kind of losing things completely. The imagery, of course. But if I get a little bit of smearing, which I always do, I don't know. It doesn't really bother me. But my stamps are tonal, okay? If you have designs that are linear, they're made out of outlines and stuff, and you get smearing happening, that doesn't look so good. But if I have some smearing of some black ink and it's going into kind of a shaded area of the rock or something like that, in this case, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm using some of my old Ranger Peach Bellini here. The walnut stain is a little bit too dark for this. These are going to look more red rockish in tone, so I'm starting off with just a light, warm shade or something like that. Something like a distress ink, old paper, antique linen would be really perfect for this too. You can go with a pink too, because pink is a lighter version, right, of red. So anything like that, anything in I'd say the red families. Okay, now this has been sitting around now. I stamped this out about 4 hours ago. Not really, but how long? Where are we on this? 1 hour? I don't know. When did I stamp that out? Maybe I don't know. It was one of the first images. So this is it's pretty set. I can see it's I'm dragging some of that color a little bit, but when I color like this, all these images are going to get darker anyway. So this first color, if it looks a little bit more, instead of peach Bellini, it looks a little gray peach Bellini or something like that. No big deal. If not, all the better, because I'm using some of that black to mix with this one. You can see it right there. And it's kind of, mixing to form kind of a shaded version of this. And I'm, a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'm adding things in these shaded areas like that, so I'm just getting some kind of incarnation of it. Yeah, I'd prefer, it stayed, pure, that pure color, but I don't know. I don't even really think about it too much, because I just know that it's going to do that. But again, I don't think it's going to matter at all in the end result. Right there. All right, so see that right there? It's just a really light tone. And again, like those distress inks have a lot of great color versions for this type of base coat. All right. Okay, let's see here. There's 2 online sources I found in the Netherlands that still sell the Marvy markers. Really? Huh. That is interesting. So Panic Coffee, if you ever get any of those Marvies, or maybe you already have them, if they're not going to, if they just have the markers, they're probably not going to have re-inkers for any of them. But like I've shown in my videos, just re-ink it with a different brand of ink, so you can really extend the life of your pens out. You might be able to use them for 30 years, I mean, these pens right here are 30 years old. And I just know that because they don't have the black barrel, which, I don't know, was probably created like 25 years ago or something like that. They've been using that different case on them. So, yeah, just, I mean, the tips get smashed down, after a certain period of time, but, no big deal. You can still use it to color with. Color your dinosaurs with that, Dino, be sure and get the color Dino green. I'm just joking, there's no color like that. I don't think. They do have a lot of different colors, Jurassic orange. All right, so see, that's what I'm doing right here. I'm kind of going from dark to light down here so that the back of those trees will look a little bit like cloud formations or something of that sort. All right, now I am working on the semi-gloss cardstock, so it is really absorbing my ink here. So I'm going for a little bit more of saturation like that, so that when I move up into my darker tones, hopefully the paper is going to be a little bit moist, and the moister the paper is, you know, when you go on with your incrementally darker tones, you know, when you're going moist into moist, it's just going to blend that much easier for you, for us. So remember, it's not just coloring, it's kind of saturating as well. That's one of the big points I was getting across, trying to get across to people that had done this type of coloring before when I was at the demonstrations this last weekend. Memento will work with alcohol inks, though, which comes in handy. I've been messing up and forgetting which ink I stamped with, grabbing the alcohol markers. Oh, huh. Even today, we order a lot of our stamping material in the Netherlands. Oh. The Netherlands, there's the stamping scene in the Netherlands has been going on for quite some time. I'd have to say it was probably Germany, kind of in that area of the world first, and I think it was probably Hein Design, unless there was another company that I'm not aware of, but Hein Design had that stamp convention really early on in the whole kind of stamping, you know, art stamp frenzy. Like, it was like even in the 90s, so there were areas of the US that, you know, didn't have a lot of stores or anything like that, but you had Hein Design out there really promoting, you know, the art stamp, whatever genre or whatever, you know, crafting genre, which is really cool. And they had, I don't know when they had their first convention out there, but I think it was in the 90s. So, like I said, that was earlier than a lot of stamp conventions were happening out here in certain areas of the U.S. Learning about the stamp scene from the 90s is fascinating. I wish I had discovered it earlier. Time machine. It's been interesting. The late 90s, you can really feel the momentum of stamping back during that time. It was just, conventions were popping up in different areas. New stores all the time, constantly. And it was, if you were a manufacturer, you know, it was pretty hard to keep up with, I don't know, with the demand. It was really pretty crazy, and there were so many different manufacturers, and it was all wood stamps back then as well. So that was its own kind of thing. There were different types of wood mounts, and I don't know, there were supply kind of issues all the time. I switched wood manufacturers, wood suppliers, probably as much as anything. Then there was the cushion suppliers. I mean, there were some manufacturers that supplied all of that, but I pretty much got my supplies from different areas, or different suppliers, you know, for different types of mounts. You know, some companies had better mounts than others. And some wood manufacturers, it was a square, and then you can choose if you want it beveled on 4 sides or if you want it beveled on 8 sides. And of course, the 8-sided bevel was, you know, the most expensive. It was like a PSX did a 8-sided beveled stamp block, I think. But can you imagine that for every one of these, there was that little bit of a beveling? I'm guessing they had to do it by hand. I can't imagine how else. Yeah, I don't know. It was definitely fun. It was exhilarating. And even back then, boy, you saw a lot of companies coming and going, though. There was a lot of turnover. It was fun though. You definitely saw you saw the same, kind of manufacturers at every convention out there. I was talking to someone. I said, well, I mean, I knew, someone was asking me about someone. I said, well, I knew them, but basically, you're setting up your convention, your booth at a convention, and you see them every couple weeks or once a month or something like that, and you see them for years, but maybe you never had a longer conversation at all because it's like, hey, how's it going? Because we're all setting up our own booths, so. I talked with this one manufacturer that I saw, for years, and I talked to her for about, I don't know, 5 minutes, and I've probably known her for like 20 years, and I talked to her for 5 minutes at this last convention this past weekend, and I think that was probably the longest conversation I ever had with her. All right, so let's see here. That's our base colors right there. We have this whole area in here to go. Let's see. In Belgium before the fly. Most local stores aren't updated with new craft products. It's tougher these days, huh? Now, see, okay, so that's a good point there, Panda Coffee, because back when there was a show here called the CHA show. It used to be called HIA, then it became CHA. It was Hobby Industry Association or something like that. But then they combined with this other wholesale show out here, and they changed it to the CHA, Craft Hobby Association. I think that was what it was. Um, but then you'd have all these stores from all over the world basically going to it. A lot of my fellow, manufacturers used to have a booth at that show, and it was twice a year. But most people went to this one that was earlier in the year. But anyway, that's where you saw all the new products out there and all, so many different stamp companies. I didn't go to that one ever. Um, I don't know. Stampscapes, we're a niche kind of company, so it was kind of word of mouth, and it was, if you had Rubber Stamp Madness, I didn't feel I needed to go to CHA, and I didn't like some of the, I don't know, rules of that show. It was, it's a wholesale show, so, it's not like a retail show, and we just never did it, but I don't know, they would be going to those shows and everyone would be getting kind of updated, products and things like that. People would see the new line of inks or something like that, or they would place their orders. But, I don't know how many people are traveling to, those wholesale shows anymore. I'm sure some people do, but I don't know too many like stamp manufacturers or stamp pad manufacturers that are going to something like that these days. Maybe like Ranger, or something like that still, but like Clear Snap's not even around anymore. So, some of the main kind of big players in the industry, um, I'm just not quite sure how much of that is going on. Like, I don't know if Sukaneko is going to come out with a, whole new line of inks or something like that these days. Just from the lack of, there's an absence of stores around. So, I don't know. Yeah. I think a lot of the pads that are coming out these days are centralized kind of manufacturing. That's what I'm guessing, because I know some people that have their pads made, and they're not the ones that are like manufacturing them. They're basically ordering the pads they want or the color designs they want from this other company that's called Stewart Superior. So I'm guessing they're the ones that are doing it, but I don't know if they have like their own line of inks or if they're just manufacturing for others. I'm not really sure. Like we were talking about that Catherine Pooler. I'm not sure if they're making their own pads or if they're outsourcing. But, I've never looked at the pads, so I don't know if it would say on the pads themselves if they are or not manufacturing their own. Okay, and before discovering sand, we got distress oxide inks and played around with water effect. Okay. Uh, yeah, I love that distress oxide look. I especially like it for things like water and skies, where you can use that water, whatever, soluble type of surface texturing, where you spray it or whatever after it's been applied. But I've also liked some distress oxide looks where it's just been applied. It looks like, to me, it looks like a hybrid ink, like the pigment dye-based looks that I've gotten from some of the hybrid inks. To me, it from a tactile standpoint, it feels like I'm working with like an oil pastel or something like that, where it's very surface oriented, which I really like. It's just there's this I don't know those hybrid inks are when you're working with that very surface oriented style of medium like that, where you can kind of manipulate it and move it around a lot. It's a really great feel, I guess, again, from that kind of tactile standpoint. I really like that. I need to play around with some of those a little bit more than I have. I've kind of forgotten about my hybrid inks. But okay, but that reminds me of those oxides like that. I love the look of those oxides. That I don't know. It's like that creamy kind of consistency or something like that. Um, let's see. Let me see, Linda. Where's number three? Was that a question for me? I'm not sure what that's referring to. Cretaceous green. Uh, okay, so I'm going on with pink right here. I don't want, I'm not going for pink rocks here, but it's just kind of a foundation for that more reddish tone coming. I'm going to have to change, let's see, my exposure here. Vintage wooden stamps from eBay, one from PSX. I like that. PSX, I'm always mentioning to people that that's the best incarnation of a wooden rubber stamp that will ever be. With that type of beveling on the stamps, I'm not pointing. Mine don't have that. And then they had that 1/4 inch red rubber cushion that was it was die cut. So they make out like these cookie cutter things, and that die. I was telling people this weekend, those dies were probably thousands of dollars to get those made because it had to be a custom die cut for those rubber stamps, and I'm sure it wasn't just one image. It was probably they were punching out probably 5 or 10 stamps at a time, somehow lining it up and configuring that process, and then they were also doing pad printing. They didn't use labels. Okay, I use labels on my images, for that type of indexing, but PSX printed directly onto the wood and then like spray lacquered over it. So a really fine type of thing. I used to do direct to stamp impressions too, but it was really sketchy because you had to get the really perfect wood for that so that it wouldn't bleed into the grains. You had to spray seal your wood beforehand, but anyways, PSX did all that pad printing somehow and got these really great impressions on top. They must have had some, error prints, I'm sure. So there was probably some waste going along with that somehow. But they always did that. So just the most beautiful incarnation of a wooden crafted product, stamp, as far as, stamp as craft that will ever be. When I started Stampscapes, I was kind of debating on whether or not I wanted to manufacture my own stamps or if I wanted to outsource it. And I didn't know what, hope I'd have with some of that because I wanted to be able to wholesale. So if I outsourced, the stamp making process, I probably wouldn't be able to wholesale it because, whoever's making it for me would have to wholesale it to me, so I wouldn't be able to wholesale it to others. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to have to do this myself. But I did check around. And one of the first places I looked into was PSX. I figured, might as well start off with the best and inquire with them. And so one of the owners called me back and he said, well, how many, what kind of quantity are we talking about here? And he said that the bare minimum quantity of a stamp per year, okay, for them to do it in the manner that they're doing it in was 20,000 units. So if you weren't selling 20,000 stamps of every design, I'm not talking about the whole line, I'm talking about one stamp, okay? That's made it worth their time to make their stamps that way, okay? That's a lot of stamps, by the way, of every single design done that way. So, you know, isn't that insane, though, when you think about it? I mean, that's a lot of stamps out there. There were a lot of stamps being sold back then. And they were probably selling to chain stores like, out here, Michael's and Hobby Lobby and, all those different types of places. I don't know if they were selling, I guess they were selling to individual stores too, but independent stores. But you had to be selling to, some pretty big chains and whatnot. But they sent their manufacturing overseas. And soon after that, I don't know, I don't think that worked for them because they were, I don't know, they were gone like within, I don't know, a couple of years after doing that. And after selling to probably putting their entire line in those chain stores because in those chain stores, no one's demonstrating them there. They're just, salespeople. They got a couple big sales and that was it probably for them because independent stores no longer carried them. So no one's going to be doing any demonstrations for that anymore. So anyway, so I'm sure you all really wanted to know all that, right? Hey, it's late here. Sun Stamps by Gumbo Graphics. Oh, look into Leavenworth Jackson. Okay, she probably has some of those sun stamps. If you're talking about those funky ones with the faces on it, or 100 Proof Press. Okay, but Leavenworth Jackson is a really great one. Um, she was out there really early on in the um, stamping world. She was one of the first ones kind of utilizing a lot of that, the copyright free clip art, and it's a well kind of curated grouping of designs, kind of in the spirit of what Gumbo Graphics kind of became. Uh, and well, you already know about Viva Las Vegas, so I'm not sure if you looked through those ones as well, because I've seen a lot of these types of stamps across different manufacturers. I'm trying to think if some of those sun stamps were created or if they were all clip art types of things. I'm not sure now that I think about it. Yeah, polymers are good in terms of positioning, but they just don't have the lasting power or impression quality of rubber. And you can't use them with certain types of inks. Like, I don't know, they say not to use them with something like like a solvent ink too. So just be careful with things like that. And polymers, I would say that, when it comes to things like linear designs, where overlapping or something like that, it's not, the stamps aren't really geared for that. You have to do a lot of types of masking or something like that, where edge to edge types of unions between stamps, when you're combining them together is really important. That's where the polymers can really come in handy for that. Personally, if it's Stampscapes, if my stuff was polymer, it would probably get people to really line up their stamps really carefully, which goes against kind of the blending aspect of the seamless type of integration that these stamps are designed for. So you really want overlapping to occur by, a quarter inch to a half inch, or sometimes even like an inch into its sibling design that it's stamped next to. So it would kind of get in the way of that. Mostly for the new stamper or something like that, just because they're coming over from oftentimes linear styles of stamping, where careful kind of placement is needed for that type of overlapping to occur. All right, so I'm going on with this, and it's kind of getting a little bit dull when the ink dries, so I'm kind of going in with some additional tones like this, but I think I might leave the additional layering and coloring to be done on these rocks right here. It's not the color that I want with them, but I think colored pencils will be maybe a little bit more conducive for that type of look. Or the colors, the color schemes I'm going for here. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I want it more of this reddish rock, but it's looking kind of like, every time I put a new color over it, I don't know, it seems like it's looking like that color even when I put like that ochre over it, or I put the pink over it, it looks pink. I don't know. Everything's like soaking into this, this semi-gloss cardstock right here. So, all right, so we lost some of the contrast between the trees and those rocks in the background, but remember that we're just going to be using the paint pens over the top of it anyway, so I'm not really, that's not really a, much of a consideration. It's a little bit of a consideration, but only when I start using those pens to go over it like that. Okay, so let's see here. Adding the linen to the rocks changed the looks of them against the tree. Yeah. Hello, Crimson Rose Creations. 4:40 in the morning right there in Jersey. See, that's what I was talking to people about. It's the people that are like on, Central or Eastern Standard Times here that crack me up, in these late night types of live streams. Let's see, local stores of products. Yeah, I'm with you there. Distress oxides are hybrid. They're dye and pigment based, but distress oxides have something else in them, don't they? It seems like some kind of, I don't know, it seems like there's a greater separation when, like even more water reactive. Yeah. Oh, sun stamp from PS6. I'm just scrolling down here. I was way up top there. A pair of lions, Coronado Island. Those are good lions. Yeah, the what was her name there from Coronado? Sandra something that designed all those animals for Coronado. Great stuff. Yeah, 20,000 units. That's quite a lot. And that's per year to make it viable to even put a stamp into production. Needless to say, Stampscapes, even in its, the most popular of images, 20,000, that's a lot. There might be a couple images that I sold 20,000 units of, like, ever. Oh, Gumbo Graphics. It's really amazing to me that, I don't know, whoever's posting these stamps on eBay, apparently they do the research and they know which ones are not in production, or, they have a high resale value these days, I guess. I see now, Kevin, the regular rubber stamps making cascading look fill the entire page. Yeah, it's we've cascaded it here, so it was the oh, it was these ones right here. Um, Rocks like this, these, Brook Falls, Babbling Brook, and Brookside boulders right there. Kind of make up the majority of it. Then I wanted some different types of geography for those higher kind of mountains in the background. One thing I forgot to use, I was going to use boulders with the trees right back in here, but anyway, oh well. Okay, so let's see here. I'm just kind of waiting for this to dry a little bit because I'm going to come into it with some blues now. Let's see. I think I was really low on summer sky right here. Let's just go on with summer skies. I'm kind of checking this out right here. Yeah, thanks, Panic. I'll keep boring you guys with stamp history here. Yeah, needless to say, I don't have a PSX stamp. I should get one, though, just for exactly what I was saying, It's just, it's like stamp history, okay? Those were the greatest incarnations that'll ever be of a wood and rubber stamp. For me, I was always trying for, the highest quality that I can get, in terms of the etchings that I get, that make the rubber. And the guy that presses my rubber is awesome. He makes all my sets and everything like that. But we know who the top dog was in terms of stamp incarnations. There was another stamp company that was pretty cool too. They were called Mostly Animals. And some of you might know the name of that one, but they had these gigantic 1-inch wood blocks that were really cool too. The blocks from Mostly Animals were really cool and really different, just huge, So we're talking about, you know, the amount of space needed for those stamps were really insane. Oh yeah, Viva Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas stamps. If anyone ever goes out to Las Vegas, I don't know what they look like now because I haven't been in their store in years and years and years. But and Wayne, was the original owner. I think it's his son or daughter or something like that that's running it now. But if you ever end up there, you got to go to that store. Give them a call, to make sure that they're open. I think they might. I don't know if they're just open all the time. I think people had to call it in or something like that to see if they're open. But it's just a really fun store to go through. I have a walkthrough of that store here on this video channel. I think it was the first video I ever uploaded. But it's really cool. Yeah, Sandra Jordan. Thank you, Linda. I plan to invest in some Stampscape stamps, but hope to buy in Australia. Yeah, there's a couple sellers listed on the rubber Stampscapes resellers. Okay, and they probably still have some. Even my old Australian exclusive distributor has remaining stamps in their inventory that they're selling in the Stamp Trap there, but yeah, check and see if who has what in inventory. There's a couple stores that, through the pandemics and everything like that, there's definitely been some slowdown in terms of what people have carried, but yeah, definitely. I really encourage people to check in there. Stamp Trap might even have like wood mounted stamps, but I don't think it'd be like extraordinarily expensive or anything like that. Because what I used to do with them is they used to make their own stamps. So, shipping wood mounted stamps from the US to Australia was, that's extremely expensive. So what I used to do is I don't know if I mounted my stamps. I think I just sent them the rubber and they mounted them there, because they can get, wood of any sizes they wanted. So that worked out really good for them, just in terms of the shipping and everything like that. So adding this blue right here, it is picking up a little bit of the black still by going in here. So I'm being a little bit careful about it. I'm getting a couple blotches here and there, but I don't know, it seems to blend out just fine. Mento inks are they're very thick inks. So on the semi-gloss paper, it's a little bit coated. It's allowing me to kind of spread it around. So kind of wiping like that was giving me a little bit of a streaking action, so I'm just dabbing instead like this. And that's why, if I'm getting a little bit of blurring, then you go with the tap instead of the drag mark like that. The person who designed the lines for Coronado, yeah, that's Sandra Jordan. I think she designed all of them. The wolves and everything like that. That was her. I've looked her up before. I'm just out of curiosity to see if she's. I was guessing that she was an illustrator, like a professional illustrator, but I don't seem to remember finding too much information. So I took it she would probably wasn't, like a practicing freelance illustrator. At the time I looked her up, which is way after, Coronado Island, went out of business and whatnot. Coronado Island wanted to sell their imagery or, that they had. And I know people that looked into them, but I don't know. They probably had notions of the industry kind of still being kind of at the former incarnations in terms of volume. So they wanted really too much, I guess, or they just didn't want to sell it or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they would be even selling, if they had the plates or what. But those ones are, quite in demand. I was kind of laughing about it over the weekend with some people. I was telling people, yeah, every time I use like that Creature of the Black Lagoon stamp, there's one or two people that seem to want that every year, and that was like a nothing stamp, when I got it, which was when it was used at the time. I'd never even seen it before from Ken Brown. But I was telling people that one stamp that I have from Edward Gorey out of that set, this little kind of looks like a slug or something like that. Every time I use that thing, there's one or two people that kind of clicks with, I don't know, people, probably have the same taste as I do, I guess, or something like that, that want that stamp. And, I've tried to find it for them, but, the latest ones is, every time we come across those kind of discontinued stamps, it's always, I don't know, it's like $40, or that entire set was like 70. I don't know, that's what someone was asking for it on, eBay. You'd never pay that, I wouldn't think. I don't know, maybe with Edward Gorey you would, there's a, reasonably known kind of a cult, style of artist or whatever, but, the Creature of the Black Lagoon or something like that, I don't know, maybe, well, that one right there, wouldn't have sold too many, but I got to think there were a lot of those Edward Gorey ones out there. Sold in those kid stamp sets. Okay, so anyways, we're almost done here with the coloring. That went pretty fast. I didn't have to do too much. I don't know, I guess it was mostly the rocks in there. The colored pencils will kind of, fix, a lot of that color scheme in there. But this is the blue that I've really wanted to use on here, going with more with kind of an aqua type of color scheme in here for the blues right there. So it kind of gives it that reddish, rock type of thing, and with an aqua, like a turquoise type of color scheme for the waters. Okay, I was just, as I was thinking that, I hesitated there for a little bit because I was wondering if I was going to use it up there. But let's just retain that aqua green-ish water for the water itself and not put it up there in the sky. Okay. Yeah. The Viva Las Vegas video. The Viva Las Vegas video, as I'm walking around the corners and everything like that. My son is in there, you know, still being held by my wife, you know. And I think Wayne at the time, he gave him like he had some little toys or something like that he gave him. I think my kid was probably 3. No, he was probably 2. So that would be, let's see, 14 years ago. Wow. But such a cool store, though, with all that neon light in there, though. When we first started going over there to his store, he didn't have the neon up. And then we went in there one other time. It's like, man, you know, he really invested in that store. Okay. But the owner of that store, his name was Wayne. He's like on Facebook still. Wayne Emery? Or is it Embry? I can't remember. But it was always amazing to me that he knew kind of like everything going on in the rubber stamp industry. And he didn't travel anywhere. It was just like he was always at his desk behind like his computers, and he had like 2 or 3 monitors up. He reminded me of there's this character, you know, it's like he's like the kingpin or something like that, kind of, you know, he's got his hand, you know, finger on the pulse of the industry and knew everything about all these different manufacturers and like all this, you know, stuff like gossip that was going around or whatever. It's like thinking, wait, how do you know all this stuff, you know? You know, I was still traveling at the time to the conventions and stuff, so I saw a lot of these people all the time too. But I don't know all that stuff about them. Not that I want to, but you know, I don't know. I don't know. He knew everything. It was kind of bizarre. Not in a weird way or anything like that, but not in a bad way, I should say. You know, I mean, he was a totally cool guy and everyone liked him. You know. But it was just kind of amazing that he was in touch with everyone, or I don't know, maybe he knew, you know, I don't know, it was hearing things like third hand or something. All right, so going with a little bit of a darker tone, you know, getting some of that water intensity to match the trees. We don't want that water to look too anemic. It should be its own kind of special, you know, color within this color whatever scheme here. You know, it can't be boring or anemic, so we want to jack it up a little bit, but you don't want to do it too much, like especially in the falling water. You want to keep that fairly light to keep somewhat of a visual path going up that way. It's a little bit too dark right there, but I think it's going to fade out when it dries a little bit. Yeah, and then I'm going to be putting some white pigment ink over the top of it there. So let's see. Let's go with yeah, those are the little types of images, Linda, that really kind of provide that kind of visual anchor point. I could put in a little like animal into the scene. It could be like the smallest little element, you know, but it'll be the visual kind of anchor point. I don't know. We have a lot of different trees and stuff like that going on in here, but especially if you put a person or something like that anywhere in here, and the viewer's eye will go directly to him. You put a little bit of a, like someone, you know, rock climbing back in here, you know, and with all this intensity and everything going around, it'll probably be the visual landing point of the viewer, and they'll just go to that one. And then every time they look at this place, you know, the scene, they would go directly to that little person. Or if it was an animal, it would be the same way. Yeah, it is a fascinating place, Angered Pegasus. It was it was it was most of their stamps there are their own stamps, okay, and as opposed to stamps from other companies. They used to order stamps from other companies, but you know, at that time, I don't know, you know, when I was going in there, it seemed like any Viva Las Vegas Stamps was a company that if someone asked them for something and they didn't have it, they would try to get a version of that into production. So they probably had 100,000 designs in their line, okay, but you know, 50,000 of them might have been word stamps, okay, or quotes or funny quotes or something like that. But they just had and tons of clip art types of things. So it was really amazing. And it was really just really fun to walk around in there. And even like 15 years ago, okay, all stamp stores, it was all, I don't know what breakdown most of them were. I'm talking about stamp stores, not scrapbooking stores, but it was probably a, well, I don't know, 50% accessories to 50% stamps, if not leaning more in the accessories area, okay? And just in terms of space, floor space, okay, I'm not talking about value or something like that, but when you walked into Viva Las Vegas Stamps, and I'm guessing the same thing these days, it's probably their stamps here, but it was like walking into a store from the late 80s to the early 90s, where you go into a stamp store and it's predominantly stamps and wooden stamps on the shelves. These days it would probably be a lot of unmounted stamps with them, but it would still be stamps. As opposed to those just a huge amount of accessories. So it was interesting for me walking in there. And there might have been like a couple, you know, like Rubber Stamp Madnesses or something like that in a small rack. But it was interesting just go back into you know, a store in the 2000s that was still a lot of, you know, or only stamps like that. All right, so we're going in and adding in our shimmery types of elements here with the paint pens. Okay, let's see. Try to zoom in as much as I can here. And I'm going to try to refrain from kind of adding, you know, 50,000 dots. We might get up to 10,000 though, which probably won't be too hard. But I still want to hit the rocks with you know, the colored pencils and whatnot. And I want to do it before I see the sunrise here, so we'll try to get along, you know, reasonably. I don't know, a full page scene with you know, doing these dots like this. I don't know, is there such thing as reasonably fast? Unreasonably fast. I should add a coyote or something to these rocks in here. A la, you know, the spirit of Arizona, or just the deserts in general. Sounds like some good stuff there, Angered Pegasus. Vintage imagery. Yeah, those are the types of things that are really, you know, present in a lot of those old kind of, they call them Dover. That was the publisher. Their books. They put out a lot of books on copyright-free illustrations, and that's where a lot of companies got their imagery from in those early years. A lot of companies were based around copyright-free illustration or clip art back in those days, which are some of my favorite types of images. I love old engravings, 19th century, early 20th century engravings. I'm into, I'm into a lot of detail. Okay, so I love that type of imagery and artwork, and a lot of it was kind of funky types of imagery. So I really love that look. Unfortunately, a lot of those companies, a lot of my favorite companies, just were gone at one point in time. Kind of cuter styles of imagery that that appeals to more of the general public. Okay, so a lot of those companies that had those kind of engravings, they were serving a lot of the stamping public from back then. A lot of the stampers back then were mail artisans, where you dress up an envelope and you send out really kind of souped up envelopes, and that was a big part of the crowd. So it was a real arty crowd, and they loved those types of old engravings, etchings, things like that, those old illustrations. But there was a shift that took place at some point in time. So a lot of those companies were gone. Gumbo Graphics, Stamp Good Stamp Goods was another one. Leavenworth Jackson's been around there, but there's companies like Ornamentum and Stamp Francisco. Again, they're kind of still out there. I think there's a website, but I don't know if they're selling it. You didn't see them like at shows and things like that anymore. But that's mostly what's in my own collection. I did a video one time of my own kind of private collection stamps. Unfortunately, though, I mean, I was around in those days, but back when we'd be at these conventions where all those companies were at, I didn't always. Oftentimes, I didn't get out because you were setting up your own booth and you're working your own booth, and before the show, day of the show, you're busy kind of setting up your demo area. So I didn't get to walk around, and get to those other booths a lot of times. Sometimes there was a little bit of time, like on a Sunday if it was a 2-day show, so I'd go and buy stamps before the show started. But I missed out, on a lot of stamps myself. Sometimes I'd find it, though. I'd be traveling around. I traveled around the country teaching at a lot of different stores, and it was kind of my policy. I'd always make an effort. I'd always buy like some merchandise from those stores that I was teaching at. So I'd often see some stamps that had been discontinued, that I'd find somewhere by these different companies that were no longer around, that I knew had, an image or two that I wish I had bought. So I was able to pick up some stamps in those instances. One stands out in particular. It was this company called Visions of Ink, and there were these line of horses, like 3 or 4 of them. The stamp's only like this big, but there's this grouping of horses, and they're running in the water. So I think there's the reflections of the horses are down in the water as well. And I found that at a store in Connecticut. I don't remember the name of the store, but I was going out and I was teaching at about 3 or 4 stores out there on one trip, and I found that one out there. It must have been like treasure or something, because I don't know, I remember that for some, I remember that distinctly, and I don't remember a lot of things, about the trip in general. Or anything about the store. Teaching at the store, that wasn't important, But those horses on the shelf, that wooden, stamp, finding that was important. All right, so going in with this orange right here, I don't know if you can see, that's kind of brightening it up, isn't it? That does look different, I think, looking at it in general. This one right here has got a little bit dull in here, so let's add a little bit more to that. As I add this down, it's fairly light and reasonably opaque, but as it dries, it's becoming much more translucent. Maybe I need to shake it up a little bit more, but these paint pens, they serve their purpose, okay? But I just wish that they would stay a little bit more opaque, which means they need a higher pigment to binder ratio than what they're doing here. Ideally, all right. I know it's cheaper for them, but you know, we need it a little bit more opaque so that it looks like, you know, a lot closer to what it looks like when it's been freshly applied in there. Yeah, those neon lights. Yeah, the 80s like that, you know. It's like that, like the Patrick Nagel years, you know, with the neon in there. Was that his name, Patrick Nagel? I can't remember those fashion shots, all the neon types of things. They go along really nicely with, what is that, big, you know, padded shoulder pad fashion, you know, years or something like that. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, Linda, exactly. If you have a chance, take a look at, I don't know, you can look it up now, but look up Havasu Falls and look at that, the water, waterfalls, the color, that aqua color in those photographs. It's really quite amazing. There's this real kind of turquoise aqua tone, but yeah, exactly. You'd also find that in like glacial types of situations. It's always kind of interesting, different colors, you know, of nature that are repeated from one place to another, or flora. You know, there's this one color that I really like a lot that I found in nature, and it's in and also the texture too. But one of my favorite plants is this red ball cactus. I love that look at that plant. And it has this waxy kind of leaf on it, or needles, I guess. And it's like this pinkish red almost, but it's the same color as this plant that I often see at higher elevations. They call it a snow plant. And it also has that, it looks like it's wax, you know. But yeah, I don't know, yeah. And there was one other plant that had that same type of look. But the interesting thing about those two plants is the snow plant and the red ball cactus. A lot of times I see it, they're kind of this isolated plant that there aren't any other ones around them, you know, at all. So I don't know what it is about that color and that type of, you know, the social aspect of that plant, you know. All right, so adding those little shimmery types of touches in here, I'm going to go with that. There's this other brand, this Lan Ren Wang brand that has a little bit of a higher pigment content. Maybe I'll switch to it right now. I'm kind of using this one on here though right now because I do want there to be a little bit of integration with this color that I'm adding on here, just so things don't look so crazy busy. Sometimes the contrast with these little dots are, you know, they're pretty extreme when I'm adding them down here. And they dry, they kind of mellow out and blend in with that background, which is kind of good for me here, because maybe it stands out a little bit too much. But, you know, I do want some more dimension, you know, for my efforts here. So I might try that Lan Ren Wang brand that has a little bit of a higher content. The one thing about them though is they don't, with their 3mm pens, they don't have too many colors. So I think there's a yellow in there. That works pretty good. Okay, so getting a little bit more shimmery and kind of, autumn-ish color, types of schemes in here. Um, let's see. I didn't hike down to that Havasu Falls, but like I said, I had some friends that went on that hike. I could have. I spent most of my time out in hiking the high deserts of California. That's where I spent a lot of my hiking time. Joshua Tree, especially, National Park, which is filled with rose quartz, rose granite rock formations. So a lot of reddish rock out there. Different than like Arizona, though. But this place called the Mojave National Preserve. I've hiked a lot. Death Valley, Anza-Borrego. I've hiked in the Sierras too, like up at higher elevations and whatnot, the local mountains. Not too much in the Sierra Nevadas, but I used to go out occasionally to Yosemite, places like that. I didn't like camping too much. You'd think, in terms of kind of the notion of it, you're camping out in areas, with beautiful waterfalls and everything like that, and glacial ponds and things like that. But every time I went out hiking in areas like that, I was just getting attacked by mosquitoes, and biting flies, and I don't know, those things drove me nuts. And out in the deserts, it's like no mosquitoes at all. So, I don't know. I'm kind of into the heat too, you know. Okay, so adding a little bit of this green in here. All right. And this is, there was a little bit of green, when we colored these as well. So I'm not adding too much to it, but it just gives it a little bit of a tinge. We need a little bit of different color than just oranges, reds, something like that. It doesn't contrast against those tones in there, but I think just, I don't know, it kind of harmonizes a little bit with it. Plus, there's a little bit of greenish tinge, down there in the form of that. So if you bring some of that, or just something a little bit related to it, in these other areas, I think it just kind of creates a little bit of an easier visual harmony with the rest of the scene. I don't know why I did this full page scene as the first live stream that I've done in a while. Maybe that's why, because I haven't been able to live stream, so it's like, and I've been wanting to get to this kind of fall red rockish looking, kind of desert scenario, high desert, higher elevation desert scenario that is. But I don't know, maybe that's why I'm doing like a largest, super large one here. All right, so here's what I'm doing right here. Here's a little bit of a tweak that I'm starting to do now. Okay, so the lighting is kind of more centralized right here. I mean, it's coming from above or something like that, but what I'm starting to do is I'm kind of starting to kind of favor the interior areas on my trees. Okay, so it's putting some, highlights on this side, and here's another tree right here, so I'm kind of adding that like that. And then I'll do the same on the trees on the other side. I'll favor the interior side of it just to kind of bring that viewer's eye more kind of centralized. I don't know if, it's not something that's like super obvious, but I think it'll just kind of focus people's kind of attention, more slightly more interior oriented. I don't know, whatever compositional containment or something like that, whatever, I don't know what term it would be, but I think it just, I don't know, there's like a visual stability to it. It's like, you take your viewer in here and it just, they're in this area, okay? As opposed to kind of like, you know, whatever, drifting out towards the perimeters, of the area. Or you can see it like a stage, they always mention stage production, where you have your viewers. The viewers know where to look or whatever, or where they're supposed to be drawn to. We don't have any stars on the stage right down here, like a little fisherman or something like that, or someone, an animal in there. But I don't know. They're a little bit more contained, though. Okay, so there is that yellow, and that's exactly what I want it to look like, but I know it's going to fade out, so... Or I shouldn't say fade out, it's just going to... It dries duller. Oh, it looks like I had that right there. Yeah, okay, so it looks like I had this one out, because there's my yellow here. Maybe I'll grab the white here. But this brand right here, you can see it has all these smaller versions of it. These are 7mm. And these ones right there are the 3mm, but I wish they had kind of a wider selection of the 3mm. I guess I could have used that orange right there, but... Oh, let me see if this kind of is effective here. I'm not sure if it is or not. They were hanging on every dot there. So I hope at least one of you were counting how many dots I've laid down so far, because I've forgotten. South Dakota, very... What does that say right there? Let me move this. Very inspired. I've never been to South Dakota. I would love to see that. I got around to a lot of different states, luckily, in, having Stampscapes, because I had the opportunity to go and teach in a lot of different states that I normally, I'm sure I wouldn't have made it to. But yeah, I've never been there before. Oh, hello, Nicole. Okay, let's see. Linda, good night. Sleep well. Look forward to seeing that 11. Linda's going to do she's got this 11x17 scene in mind. Can you imagine doing this like in a 11x17, So instead of like, 10,000 dots, Linda can do 50,000 dots. Do an 11x17 full autumn scene, Linda, and title it The Zen of the Dot. I was at this convention this last weekend, and yeah, it was a travel, I guess, too, but it was kind of the change in schedule. You know how I'm up like this time right now, at 3, it's almost 3 a.m. for me here. Linda B and I are in the same time zone, but um, I'm a night owl, so I feel perfectly comfortable up at this hour. But last week on Friday, I took off to my rubber guy's house, who I do the shows with. Okay, so we team up in a booth, and I'm able to share some booth space with him. That's why we do the shows. We can, share in the expenses and, travel expenses and stuff like that. But anyways, I had to get to bed earlier, which was really hard for me to go to bed like at 12, a.m. I'm more comfortable going to bed like 2 or something like that, and or later. But I had to get up at 3:30 a.m. to drive up to his house, and so I don't know how much sleep I got. I got maybe an hour, if that. And then I had to drive about an hour and a half to his house, and then we're driving out to Arizona from his place, which is about 5 hours. So we got out there and we set up the booth, and after that type of thing, I was like really tired at 7:30, you know, and I was ready to just go to bed at that time, which is, I know it was a little bit too early, but then I woke up at midnight and I just could not get back to sleep. So I was so tired getting back from that show because I don't know, I'd never really acclimated. So it was like I had jet lag, in the neighboring state, which is on the same time as us, but it was just my change of schedule. So I looked at these photographs of me demonstrating that someone took there, and I thought, oh my God, I look like extra haggard in those photographs, which is funny. Badlands National Park. I've heard of that place. I've seen photographs. I can't remember exactly the terrain, but I remember looking at that place and thinking, "Oh, I really like that," because it's real desert. That's my type of terrain out there. I'd love to see that, like Central Australia, anywhere Australia, the coast. Okay, I had a chance to do that more so like probably in the '90s when the Crafty Lady, that was the name of the company that uh, carried our stamps out there. She really wanted to get me out there, but I just couldn't get away long enough, for a trip down there. But she would bring, arrange like, stamping tours, of a bunch of stampers from Australia to come up to the States, and usually it was around the time of the Carson Rubber Stamp Convention. Boy, what a rubber stamp convention that used to be. Sometimes with as many as 65 different companies. And in those days, you'd have 65 different companies, and there would probably be 25 companies on the waiting list. So they started opening up other conventions kind of around in the Southern California area, but Carson was the stamp convention in, you know, the country. So you'd get a lot of people would treat the rubber stamp convention like they ended up treating more of the wholesale shows later on. They would come out to the Carson, California, which is basically Los Angeles, that convention. They'd be coming out from all over the world. You'd be seeing buyers from Japan, Europe, definitely Canada, and definitely the U.S. domestically. When I'm talking about from an international sense, so like my sellers in the United Kingdom, they came out to the Carson show, and that's where they saw Stampscapes, and asked if they can retail it out in the UK. But it was a real kind of a event. All right, so I think that is it. I can't tell right now with this white how that's really affecting kind of the overall look of the trees because, I can see that white pretty good in there. We'll see if it kind of fades into the, or blends in with that background, or if it kind of stands out still a little bit when it dries a little bit more, so. All right, let's go with that. And okay, I'm not gonna spend too much time, I don't think. But let's hit some of those red rocks with some different pencils. I really love the. I was looking at one of those colored pencil pieces I did. I don't know, what, 2 weeks ago at this point in time, but I really like this look at those colored pencils on this covered bridge right here. Um, I'm liking colored pencils more and more these days. I'm not someone that's really practiced at it very much, so okay. Oh, Crimson Rose. Sorry, that was the Lan Ren Wang. Yeah, I'll just put it right there. Lan Ren Wang. That's a tough one. That's an A right there. That's that. These are pretty good in terms of the paint saturation, okay? And then I noticed that's what they have on the description of these. They say it's a higher pigment ratio to binder, okay? So these paints are a little bit better. Their tips aren't as good though. So if you pop off the top, watch that tip. I don't know, the tip, can it can pop right out on you, and which has happened on a couple of mine. Okay, you just kind of pop it right back in a draw, and it's not leaking anywhere. But that's one aspect of them that's not very good. But you know, having the tips kind of pop off, fall out just by opening up the cap, that's not very good. I mean, like I said, not broken. You can just drop it back in there, But you know. You heard it here. It can happen. Okay. Okay, so let's go on here. The good old bad days of stamp conventions and tours. Reason as currency to get the pre-releases. Got it. Like my um, retailer down there, she brought up a group of like 30 people one time. I don't know, maybe 25 or 30, that stamp convention. I think they went to Disneyland too and stuff. Because I went out to their hotel and taught, or not taught, but I gave a workshop to them. And then it was fun seeing them all at the show, kind of walking around when they were out there for that. And I think they might have went to Las Vegas while they were out here as well. So, it's a fun time for them. Okay, so, yeah, hopefully you can see that. Can you see that reddish tinge right there? Let me work it from this side, though. It's a little bit easier for me. But yeah, they wanted me to go down to Australia and, teach some classes and things like that. I would have loved to have done that. I always said I needed to, if I had like a clone of myself, I could have made it around to a lot more places. Well, I guess if it was a clone, it wouldn't be me, but I don't know, some version. I would have loved to have made it around a lot more. And then later on, kind of in my latter part of my heavy travel days, I started scheduling kind of days off in between some classes where I'd go out and check out the kind of the regional, sites in these areas. And I really had fun doing that. Different national parks and things like that, around the country. All right. Getting a little bit more reddish of tinge. It's getting a little bit almost too bright there with that red, huh? This red is really applying down here. All right. Okay, boy, that is really bright there. I'm gonna have to knock that down to some brown, which I do have right here for that purpose. All right. Hello, Sandy. Good to see you. Couldn't get to sleep tonight. I don't know. Maybe it was all the tapping here. It was keeping you up, Sandy. Or maybe it was that we were calling you, seeing, we weren't sure where you were. Uh, Kind of on an ESP level, whatever, like psychically, that's what it is. We were calling you psychically. Sorry to keep you up, uh, or waking you up for that, or keeping you up. Speaking of some rubber stamping fun times, uh, Sandra K up there, we've attended rubber stamping retreats before, scenic stamping, rubber stamping retreats, which were really fun. I don't know, I think I went to three of those or so. Yeah, three. I think I went to three of them, where it's just a bunch of scenic stampers getting together and it's basically stamping. And we learned from each other, but it wasn't like formal instruction or something like that, like classes or anything like that. It's everyone bringing their own stuff and then just getting together and stamping for Friday, Saturday. Uh, I don't know if we did anything on Sunday mornings, but stamping fun, seeing stamping fun. All right, let's see. I'm going to add a little bit of foreground down in this area too. I'll have to do that with a StazOn pad probably over all this wax. Let's see. Have you got any wagyu, Linda? All right, here we go, like that, and let's go on with the brown, and then I use black as well. So the browns, I'm just kind of reiterating some of the shadow areas, and it'll also knock down some of the extreme areas of the higher intensity of the reds that have been achieved in some of these areas. But then, I want the richness of it, but I don't want, like so hot like that. Okay, so we're just kind of laying that down. So you get the richness of it, but it's just not so kind of extreme, by laying this. The colored pencils, you can kind of see the colors underneath showing through, almost like, I don't know. I mean, it's not a transparent medium, I don't know. It's wax. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it is, more transparent than it is opaque. in terms of that scale there. Okay, now here's where I'm going to start adding in some additional shadows. Okay, underneath some of these trees. So I'm just making it a little bit darker underneath some of these areas. You know, we want some of the, I don't want it to be so, dark because these leaves are going to be transparent and, the light is going to be able to shine through them, but I do want to kind of anchor some of those down a little bit more with some additional tone from their, their presence there. I think that white really did stand out. That white that I've laid down with that Lenren wing, it's still there pretty well, unlike the other ones that really kind of blended in, so that was good. Okay, so up here, the light is coming from here. I almost forgot about these mountain areas up top, but we can add in a little bit more tone like this. And you don't have to do it kind of too evenly. You just kind of do it here and there and just kind of oscillate it a little bit more, which is probably, kind of more akin to what it would look like if we were actually there. So, just make certain areas a little bit darker, leave some areas lighter in between. They call it checkerboarding, like that. And it doesn't matter which ones, you retain the light in, just so long as it's kind of, oscillating a little bit more. Maybe I'll go a little bit darker on this corner area just to kind of frame the piece off a little bit. Since I'm not adding in like a formal kind of strong vignette around the corner, you can just add a little bit of tone like this that will do the trick right there. Okay. I missed those too, Sandy. The last one I went to, I wish I could have made out to more, but that last one that I went to, I was having so many problems with flights over a long period of time, like a couple years, where it was like every single flight I was taking was delayed, canceled, my connections. I made it out to that last one that I went to, the last retreat. I got out there like, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours after I was supposed to, just because one of my flights got canceled. And they weren't even going to connect me up, but I got out there somehow. So I missed like the entire like Friday out there of stamping. And then when I was coming back home, because one of my flights on the way there got canceled, and then they hooked me up with another flight to get out there. For some reason, they canceled one of my flights to get home too, so I had to find a different route for that. But that was just like indicative of a lot of different things that was happening to me with all my flights. I think I took 8 trips in a row where all of them got canceled, or something happened where they were putting me up in hotels overnight, getting car services to different airports the next mornings, and it was just a real hassle. It was like, all right. Then later on, I was thinking, I thought it was flight curse, but then I started thinking later on, after I was hearing all those problems with United Airlines, I started thinking, oh, maybe it was just United. Because that's who I was using all the time. We have Insomniac Theater right here. That's what this one should be called instead of Stampscapes Friday Nights. It's like, Stamping Insomniac Theater here. Okay, let's see here. What other things would be kind of interesting? Does anyone want to hear the kind of the dark side of stamp conventions? There really isn't a dark side, but there's certain little funky things that you see over the years. I was talking about this with the guy that I was traveling with, and we were just kind of discussing some things that have happened through the years, which relatively speaking are very mild types of things, compared to other types of probably industries or whatnot. But I have my rubber made by another fellow manufacturer, but at one of the conventions, um, none of these things are just like super bad, but well, this one I don't know. For the person involved, it was pretty bad. I don't remember the company the that this was happening to, but this one company was having this other company, and I won't say their name because I don't know if they're still in business. They might still be. But there was this one company was having another company make their stamps, right? Make their rubber. And then they go to the Carson convention. I found all these things out because I used to work for the coordinator of that convention, and Stamp in the Hand, Kathy Okamoto. So I'd hear about all these things. Definitely at the shows while I was still working for her. She'd say all the things that came up during the show. But one company is having another company make their stamps, and then they both show up. They're both vendors at the Carson show, and this one company goes over and sees their stamps being sold by that company that is making their stamps for them. And they say, hey, you can't, what are you doing? You can't be selling those stamps. Those are our stamps. You're just the manufacturer for them. Can't just make them up on your own and sell them. He says, hey, you know, from what I understood, it was like, hey, basically, hey, you can't stop us. And then I don't know what happened. I think Kathy, as the coordinator, she made him stop selling those stamps. But that guy was in business for a long time. And at one point in time, he was making stamps for other companies. And when I was looking for someone to press my rubber, I asked him, possibly, about that. But then I remembered that from 10 years earlier, there was that incident with him, you know, at the show, being confronted by one of his own clients. And he, I don't know, it's a little bit unethical to be doing that, to say the least. So stuff like that happen, stuff like that, I mean, that type of thing didn't happen too often. But a lot of theft types of things, one time there was this young kind of couple. I don't think they were stampers at all, but the way they were stealing stamps at the show was he carried his jacket and he tied off one of his sleeves, okay? And they were filling up their like jacket with wood and rubber stamps. It was all wood rubber stamps back then. And someone heard at one company heard something like a clicking of like someone dropping like wood on wood. And so they went and got security, and sure enough, this guy had his jacket filled up, with all these stamps in that tied off sleeve area. So, and then when they found that, they went out to this person's car, and it was the car trunk or something like that was just filled up with stamps. What they were doing with that, I don't know. This is like pre-internet and pre-eBay, and like I said, I don't think this young kid was like a stamper at all. So I don't know, maybe a klepto or something like that. you know. But in those early days of wooden rubber stamps, the thing that you would find too is, I don't know where this, it was pre-internet, so it wasn't like, you go on this website and you find out like this, you know, techniques of how to steal stamps at conventions. But people would, they'd go, and conventions were really busy, so there would be tons of people in booths all the time, and people, you can't watch everyone. You're helping someone out, and it's not like you have a bunch of eyes on the booths, but people would go in, and because they couldn't steal a lot of stuff because stamps are heavy, so they'd rip off the rubber off of a wood mounted stamp, in the cushion. And oftentimes what you do, they would, I don't know why, it wasn't like, I don't think this one person was traveling the country doing this, because it would be happening around the country. You'd hear it from different vendors, but then they throw the stamp underneath the table, because typically booths would have table coverings on them. And so you'd find, your stamps, missing the rubber die under the table. And back then, people weren't using rubber stamps. I mean, just dies, okay? So they'd be going home and remounting these stamps, I guess on wood, to use them, unless they were just like, kleptomaniacs or something like that, where it was just like the hunt, or something like that, where they weren't really using them. But presumably they were going home and remounting them, which people did back in those days. If you bought an unmounted stamp, you mounted it on wood. Sure, it was like that type of thing. Going on, that went on for a long time. I don't know. We never caught anyone doing that. There'd be a lot of times people will go to a booth, and they just kind of walk off with the basket or something like that full of your stamps, and you say, "Oh, were you going to get that?" And they'd say, "Oh, okay. Oh, I thought, you guys were the same booth or something like that," which, wasn't the truth there. But I don't know. There was a lot of things like that going on. Samples being stolen. I have had so many samples being stolen. When you're working on a scene or something like that, a lot of times, if there was a lot of people around you, I'd kind of pass the card around so that people in the back could see it. But oftentimes that card never came back, and the person would they'd take the card, So that happened. That happened quite a bit. I mean, not no big deals. Or sometimes, in the worst case scenarios at conventions, you're traveling out of state, and you'd have these people kind of striking up a conversation with the vendors there to find out, oh, where are you from and stuff like that, and where'd you travel from? And what they would be doing is they would be seeing if you're from out of state, because if they stole something from you, and if you're going to take them to court or something like that, you'd have to remain in the state, or you'd have to go back for their whatever, the case. And they knew that people wouldn't do that, so they would find out kind of, that information from you first. You know what I mean? It seems like a kind of a lot to go through, to steal rubber stamps of all things, or whatever, accessories. But that was a kind of a known type of, kind of scenario there. So that's, those are the little, I don't know, there was other things too, but that's the types of things that it was known that you should kind of watch out for a little bit at shows, or there might be someone that was kind of known to be doing that, but no one ever caught them, but, look out for whoever or something like that. So, that's the kind of the fun part of the stamp convention. Things they don't talk about, you know what I mean? So you get the you get the some good insider kind of whatever, stamp convention information here, brought to you by the Stampscapes company. All right, so anyways, different types of color schemes in there. We're almost there. It is time for, when you get to the white pigment ink, you're pretty, getting close in there. What is lenticular there? Lenticular cards. Lenticular sounds like a type of cloud formation, like crepuscular, or something like that. Isn't there lenticular? Isn't there cloud? Yeah, there's cloud formations called lenticular, right? All right, let's see. White pigment ink. Okay. So we had to dip into the dark side of convention things. I'm trying to keep I got to keep some people awake here. But the dark side of a convention, kind of mischief, it's really kind of more of just a like a slight dimness, in comparison to any other shows. Security at rubber stamp conventions have it had it, pretty light, in terms of anything that ever happening. They don't have to worry about, like at security doesn't have to worry about like something at like sporting events, of, you know, I don't know, whatever, a lot of passions, plus alcohol. I don't think a lot of rubber stampers are really getting like boozed up so that, by the time, you know, 4 p.m. came around or something like that after boozing it up all day, people come into blows over that, last, whatever, yeah, rubber stamp, uh, that two people wanted. That being said, sometimes the conventions would get so busy and crowded. There was a lot of complaints about things like strollers at that Carson convention in particular that got really, really busy. There's been, I think, two conventions that I had been to that the fire marshal came and, there was just too many people in the buildings. So they started regulating the flow of people getting let into the building. Okay. So they had to, 50 people had to go out and then they started letting in, 10 people at a time, when 10 people would come out, something like that. I was talking with someone that was at this one show that they were held at the Queen Mary, which is this old, steamship, that they, it's permanently docked, and they started using that for one of the shows. That thing got so busy, and there were people waiting in line to get in that show for, I don't know, 4 hours or something like that at one point in time, after the fire marshal came and kind of started regulating the flow in there. But that same thing happened to just the regular Carson show one time. There were so many people in there, and you know, 10 people out, 10 people in type of thing. But only after a certain number had exited, uh, you know, to do that. And it was at some of those shows like that. Some people said, I'm never going back again, because they were one of the people that had to wait in line. They didn't get in there. And then sometimes after you got in, it was just really hard to get into, the booths and things like that. It was really pretty crazy at some of them. At some of those early shows too, there'd be people waiting in line to get into the show, maybe like 4 hours before they opened. So it got pretty crazy. Well, yeah, not always, Nicole. those are like those are like the incidences like over like 20 years of conventions or something like that. And it was probably just a couple people. Most of the times everyone's like super cool there, and very positive and everything like that. You get, they're rubber stampers, so they're, people that are very giving, in general, people that, make cards and, You know, they make them to give away to other people, you know, to make other people happy. So it's usually that, but I don't know. You get, yeah, some, you know, like I said, that person like ripping off people with that jacket, or just people in, you know, stealing stuff like that. I don't know. I got to imagine it was just, you know, a couple people at most at these shows, but, you know, I don't know. They get around, you know, whoever they were. And it was probably the same person or same two people amongst 12, I don't know, whatever, however many people attended those shows, you know, a few thousand sometimes. All right, so adding that in there, see that kind of that lighting coming through there. And it's breaking kind of my harsher kind of coloring in there too, you know. And where these areas, I've retained some of that little white back there, all kind of diffuse some of those trees around in those areas like that. And just, I don't know, it just changes the kind of the textural, I don't know, whatever quality in those areas that are, and gives us a different texture to look at. So it's not so, you know, I don't know, monotonous from a textural standpoint in those illuminated targeted areas like that. So I think it's just bringing it to life like this. And I just, you know, I have too many areas in here that are just too similar to each other. Like right in here, this needs to get broken up a little bit. So I'm coming across here with some of this white, and we'll creep a little of this up into this area like that, okay? Now that's going to look a little bit darker when it dries, but see, that looks a lot better in here like that. Okay, and we have this illumination right down here. Let's zoom out a little bit more. Okay, and we'll put some of this down in here. Okay. And let's see, let's go a little bit more up here. All right, it's a little bit of lighting coming over that little ridge in there, okay? Sometimes I go a little bit too far with this, but then it kind of mellows out when that white dries. It dries darker and more see-through, so yeah, it kind of evens it out a little bit more. Let's see. Angry Pegasus, crowded places tend to scare me. That Queen Mary show, when it got really busy, I've never experienced this before and never experienced since, but I got a little bit claustrophobic on that show, but it was only like for a few seconds. I don't know. It was just that you were surrounded by people, basically. I'm sitting there demonstrating the whole time, so I'm not having to get up too much, but I don't know, at one point in time, I don't know, I had this weird feeling, and it was just like, yeah, it was just, I was so crowded, and I'd had this slight, like, what I would imagine, because I've never felt it before, like a maybe a 1.5 second panic attack. But if I didn't have it, though, I wouldn't remember it as much. So, yeah, in retrospect, it's like a good memory because it's one of that I've retained. Otherwise, I'd have just forgot all about it, right? Okay, so a little bit of a pig, Dr. Martin's bleed proof white for splatter painting down here. Okay. So I'm going back into the base of the waterfalls, I guess, and adding that. Maybe I want to add I'm going to add a little bit of splatter everywhere, though. Okay, it's going to be like, I don't know, just a little bit texturing in here too. It can represent light or whatever. I'm going to do it fairly lightly. All right, so that's what that looks like down there. And so it's kind of like right there and there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Good morning. God's desire for me. Good to see ya. This is like a marathon stamping thing. I won't be insulted if anyone is off. I didn't, at these hours here, I'm kind of always amazed that anyone's watching at all. But thank you, everyone, for checking this out. I hope it has been worthwhile watching, as always. Well, I guess if it wasn't, you wouldn't be on or whatever, unless you're, feel sorry for me. But let's go here. I'm going to add in a little bit more foreground. Okay, I have this image right here. I have a feeling that it's going to, I was going to say stays on, but now that right when I was thinking that, I was thinking the Claire, VersaFine Claire. I think I can go with the VersaFine Claire over that wax colored pencil. Okay, I don't know. Let's give it a try. And if the Claire doesn't work, then I'll switch over to the stays on. Okay. But I'm picking up a little bit of glare here, I think. So here's what this piece looks like. Okay. It wouldn't be a bad idea to come in with a little bit of some different techniques in here, maybe a little bit more texture in here, but you guys have served your sentence, long enough here. we should really be doing this probably in a Zoom session, so everyone can just can talk or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to add this down here in the foreground. So this is a little bit redundant right here. You have this rock right here, here, here. You know what I mean? It's looking a little bit too similar to me. So I'm going to come in here and break some of this up, but it'll still be down there though, but it'll just be kind of pushed back in the back of another texture. Hopefully if I can get, a really good impression with this Claire. Oh, here I'm stamping over this ridge here too. Let me get these back together like this. I kind of amassed that so that I wouldn't get that paint everywhere, but see that right down there? It kind of looks kind of deserty. I forgot what they call it. Pickle bush? I don't know, I forgot. Where did the VersaFine Claire go? Oh, here it is right here. All right. So bizarre, how like the ocean covered up, all these other areas. I was out in the deserts in this one area, and it said, and I saw these plants out there, and then later on I was reading that some of those plants out there in this particular area, the desert, I don't know, 4 hours at least from the ocean are the same plants that you find usually just coastal. And it's because, that time when, the ocean reached up into those areas. And I guess the Native Americans also used to go from that area. Like I said, it's like a 4.5, 5 hour drive to any the closest coast, but they used to go and trade with the coastal tribes. So you find things like shells and stuff out there, probably shell, whatever, adornment out there in some areas of, the desert. I one time found a shard of pottery, which blew my mind. Okay, so anyways, there's a little bit more foreground like that. It kind of added a larger element that was closer to us. I'm kind of tempted to bring in something in here too. Maybe not that same thing. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe we're done. Okay, you can go to sleep. There might be something I'll have to bring in here, like it does seem like it's kind of ripe for some kind of focal point. I don't know, we need like a little eagle or something like that flying around in the, like in a thermal or something up there, adding a little bit more light or texture, in some of these areas. That could be possibly a nice little feature in there. Hello, Yvonne. Goodbye, Linda. Thanks, Panic Coffee. Thanks to anyone that's joined in. We'll have this on a 10-minute voiceover version. Falls in the Fall. That's a good one. Okay, I'm going to add in a little bit of a kind of final touches here into my falls. I colored in a little bit too much, but I just reclaim it with a little bit of the 0.7 millimeter acrylic paint pen. Yeah, this one's not feeding real well. This one's the one that works really well. Okay, so see that right there where it's all like blue like that? So let's go in and add a little bit of white back into that. All right, and we'll add a few little highlights here and there. I'm not going to add it too much to these rocks. I went pretty dark on a lot of these rocks, so I didn't retain too much of the lighter areas. Maybe I'll go into those rocks with a little bit of a tan or something like that, but I won't do it tonight or this morning now. But yeah, maybe that'll look good. I'll come in another video maybe and just do some finishing touches. I mean, this is pretty, I would say this is 95% done, but I think if I look at this a little bit more, I think there's some areas that I can define a little bit more, kind of in a subtle fashion, maybe using tones that are a little bit, more in the spirit of these colors right here, but not going so extreme contrast with white. Again, because there's not a lot of white that I've retained in some of these areas over here. And I also want to take a look at some of those trees too. You know what I might do on this one? I might spray seal this with a workable fixative, which is a textured fixative, and come into it with some additional paint pen work that will not bleed into, the paint pen work that's underneath it, because it's going to be sealed off, and I think I'll be able to get more of a crisp, kind of highlight within those trees, especially with the yellow tones or something like that. I want some nice little crisp shimmery dots like that, and then we'll add some of those. Um, down into the terrain a little bit too, in the form of some little, I don't know, fallen leaves. I'm going to do that a little bit right now too, just because these will kind of blend in with the background. Like I said, that, you know, paint pens just kind of, you know, they merge with the background a little bit, which is good in some instances, like for this, but in other instances, I want it to be a little bit more, or a lot more, opaque, so that it stands out a little bit, you know, quite a bit more. But putting those little dots into these rocks down here will give it a little bit of continuity between those rocks and the trees, okay? Because otherwise they're just kind of too, you know, too different. So you add some of that down there like that. And you can add it in the water. There's some of these little leaves. After all, it's fall, so you can have some of those leaves down in the water as well, like that. Kind of cluster it a little bit too. Okay. Like that. All right. So there we have it. Kind of. Unless I add in some other touches. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you sleep on it, you know what I mean? I don't know, don't you all kind of do that? You kind of look at it the next day and it's like, oh, you know, something that didn't stand out to you, you know, really stands out to you a lot more. And, you know, we'll think about some kind of focal point in here too. I don't know. Or we can just, instead of like having a, you know, like a definitive focal point in here, like with some little creature or something like that, you could say, you can always do that thing where you write, imagine yourself here with an arrow like that in the scene. I'm joking, but I don't know. You can almost, you know, imagine yourself in any of the scenes that you do in some ways. That's what I always tell people in scenic stamping. It's kind of a transportive experience. You kind of lose yourself in terms of the creative experience where, you know, you started off at whatever, 12 something, and here it is 3:42 a.m. for me. And 3 hours. Okay, 3 hours, 4 scenes, basically, you know, 4 normal quarter-size scenes. So, yeah, but like I said, it's kind of transportive in terms of a, I don't know, kind of a creative experience as well. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of imagining, you know, the sounds of the waterfalls in the background and things like that. And that's kind of one of those little extra bonuses with doing scenic types of stamping there. So I always like that kind of that notion, you know, of creating a scene and kind of escaping into it during the process. So yeah, but anyways, yeah, like I said, sometimes some little bit of like an overnight thing. And if I look at this tomorrow, I might notice some things about, I don't know, some highlighting or something like that, or a little bit more continuity might come out. And I don't know. I don't know. I want to get this one right. So I'm looking around at it right now. Maybe a little bit more shimmery textures or something like that. Yeah. I'm getting used to catching you late at night, not early in the morning. Some people are waking up. Some people are, you know, passing out. It'd be funny if some people are passed out in front of their computers or something like that. This is 8.5 by 11 here, so A4 Angry Pegasus. Yeah, I should have done it though. It should be 8 by 10, so I can mat this. You know, double mat it on something with a little bit of a. I usually go with a little bit of white perimeter and then a little bit of an outside one. So I don't know, this one. I don't know. I didn't. I guess I can cut off like a. I don't know, maybe like a. I don't know if I'd want to cut a 1/4 inch off each side, you know, like get it like a 1/2 inch down. Because I don't have other papers like 11 by 17s except in white to mat this on. So I don't know. Things always look better matted too, right? Nicole can watch me create all day. Okay, so stay on your computer, Nicole. Go get a nice go get some coffee because we're gonna this is gonna be like 15 hours here. I tell you, it is fun. One thing about those conventions is it gives me an excuse to sit down and I'll demonstrate for, and stamp for 8 hours, straight through. And, I enjoy that because it's like I wouldn't do that normally. Here I've been stamping for 3 hours, but yeah, I have no problem sitting there and demonstrating. And also talking to people with the same interests, all day, stampers. It's really fun. That's why I like having these live streams now. It's really fun chatting with people, you know, that we have the same interests and whatnot. So it's always a good time, and I learn a lot too. I learned a lot less last weekend demonstrating. That's where I learn about a lot of new media and stuff like that, pens and stuff. I've never heard markers and brands and stuff like that. There's a lot of information out there. Um, you know, as long as we're asking the right questions or something like that. So I learned a lot about things like I don't know, like different brands of colored pencils, I learned that, from you guys too. Sometimes when we're talking about different brands, there's so many different brands of things out there these days that I just don't know the differences between a lot of them. And we were talking about a lot of colored pencils over this last weekend because I was doing that thing on white pigment ink on tops of the printable vinyl, and we were talking about different brands of colored pencils that would probably work on there. Maybe they all would, but some of them might be a little bit too hard. And some people were saying at the convention, like some of the cheaper types of colored pencils just are, super hard. That might be digging into the white pigment ink that's on the top of the printable vinyl. So I don't know, but it's interesting. Frame it. No, no cutting. Linda, I'm gonna cut it down. I'm gonna figure out a card size area of it, and we'll just trim off the rest of it. So here's like a quarter size. So it's we'll figure it out like this. I never frame anything, but I don't know. Wherever this ends up, maybe they will. Where is the next convention? I don't have a next convention, Eli, so I'm not sure. Um, have you been watching this whole time? You were the first one that commented, or one of the first people, man. That's a long time. I'm going to give people, I need to send out like some sort of like a endurance medallion or something like that scene for people that are watching these scenes straight through. Yeah, but I don't know if that could have been my last convention. The conventions that I do with my rubber guy, and he only does the conventions that are within driving distance. So he was mentioning getting out of doing conventions, but when I kind of offered to kind of join in on with him, he thought that was a good idea. So we've been doing the Arizona and Carson conventions. Now Carson, I don't think is ever going to go on again. It might, but I'm just not sure about that. So if we do any show again, it would probably be the Mesa show in March or April. It happens there twice a year, if they do it twice a year. There weren't that many booths there this time around, so I don't know if it's going to go on twice a year or if at all. You know, I think a lot of the vendors just didn't know to sign up for something or not because at one point in time, a lot of the vendors got that were signed up for some of the shows. The shows got canceled. So, yeah, and I don't know, maybe at one or more of those conventions too, people didn't get their refunds. So, I don't know. Maybe that's another part of the dark side of conventions. People, that those lockdowns happened. People didn't get their money back. That signed up for those shows. So, yeah. Chocolate. Let's see. Frame worthy. Thank you so much, Siobhan. I appreciate that. I never frame things though. I've never displayed any of my work either. You know, a lot of times when I'm done with these, you know, these scenes or something like that, I do give, you know, a lot of my cards away most of the time. You know, I don't have it, you know, I might, you know, some of them might stick around a little bit, but, you know, I'm just kind of on to the next scene most of the time. So I don't even think about it. You know, I just kind of forget about it. Like this one right here. Like I said, I might tweak this one a little bit more though, because I've been thinking about this one in particular all week after coming back from Arizona. It didn't quite, you know, some of the color schemes and things like that didn't quite get there, but I think I want more yellow in here, like in this little area right in here. So I think I might want to spray seal this, and I just as an experiment, I want to see if I can get some nice crisp applications over the top of that spray sealant in lighter tones like this. I want those yellows to stand out there. That's what it is right here. The trees right here, they're blending in too much with the rocks in terms of the color scheme, and I want that yellow to pop out more against those reddish rocks as opposed to blending in like back up in here. So back up in here, it's probably the 0.7 millimeter pens, the extra fines. I'm not gonna go, you know, nuts with it, but I want that yellow to stand out more, like an aspen or something like that in there. So yeah, something like that. So okay, so yeah, I didn't realize what it was until just now when I kind of analyzed it a little bit more. It needed to be we need a little bit more separation between those trees and those reddish rocks like that, so that I don't know they can kind of contrast against each other a little bit more. But you know they still have the same tones in them, so hopefully they'll harmonize but separate like that. So yeah, yeah, exactly. Angry Pegasus. It's you know you're in a convention and you know people might not be into scenic stamping, but you're in this room full of stampers, you know, like-minded people, and I don't know, you can kind of feel the energy of it too, you know. And plus, people are, you know, look forward to going to those things, so you know the vibes are always very positive at the shows, you know, except for that one vendor who was getting, you know, his stamp stolen by his manufacturer. Yeah, but I don't know. I've always remembered that story. Otherwise, I wouldn't have remembered that story, you know, that convention at all. You know, it's been like probably been like 25 years since that show. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you know, yeah. All right. Crimson Rose, yeah. I might do it in another, you know, short video or something like that. It'll be a kind of a finishing kind of touch thing here. So we need to do like little, you know, little clusters of these leaves kind of like on top of the, you know, the rounded portions of these things too. Like on this one right here, we could put a few like yellow leaves on the tops of some of these rocks too. I think that would look really good. So, and you know, like I said, have it floating around in that water a little bit more. So I don't know, I'm kind of figuring it out, you know, here as we're kind of discussing it. So we'll have another live stream. You know, if anyone can stand looking at this scene a little bit more, and hopefully those additions don't you know don't destroy it. Don't go totally overboard with it. So I'll try to refrain from overdoing it with some of those different touches like that. So yeah. All right, folks. Thanks so much for joining in here. I've been looking forward to trying to get back into a live stream here again after the show last weekend, but I don't know. It's basically like I took 4 days off because 3 of those days it was traveling and then doing the show, and then it was like Monday I got back and you know did work with you know got some orders out and stuff like that, but I was kind of been a zombie on Monday, and it was just like trying to play catch up the rest of the week. But this is the one that I wanted to do. I've done some other videos, you know, with some questions that came up and stuff like that I can do really fast, but this is kind of the scenario that I've wanted to do. And I like the mountains there and the brown in the background. I wanted to see what that would look like. So, yeah, but I definitely need to refine this a little bit more, and I think that'll be those finishing touches that we just talked about will put this, you know, it'll complete it a little bit more than right now. And I think it's just some minor things. Okay, so anyways, thanks so much, everyone. Good night, good morning, afternoon, wherever you're at around the world. Thanks so much for joining in. And I enjoy looking at everyone's work too, if you're on Facebook and such. And yeah, I don't know. A lot of fun here with the this piece. And can't wait to finish it off in the next video sometime. Maybe it'll be later on today, you know, since it already is it already is tomorrow from when we started this one. Although we started this one after midnight, but, you know, not too soon after midnight. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next live, which will be in 3 hours from now. Just joking, but maybe later on tonight. I'll give this a chance to dry off and such, and spray seal it and whatnot. But it'll always be up on Flickr, my Flickr account, and Facebook and stuff like that, and, you know, on this channel. So, and we will definitely do a quick version of this video. Usually like to keep it down to like 10 minutes, so, and there'll be the intro version, which is even shorter. Those are my favorite ones, you know, without me talking in like 3 minutes long or something like that, with music instead. So, all right, good night.